Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and I have a friend, Milton Corsey, who is Director of Human Capital at Achieve Next.
That's correct, yeah.
And I'm going to be doing some work with them, but it's a very entrepreneurial endeavor, and I know Milton is an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So I want to welcome you to Entrepreneur State of Mind.
I appreciate it.
And always I want to start with kind of your origin story. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into consulting? And
Okay, fantastic. Sure, be more than happy to share. Mm-hmm. I'm a local guy. I grew up here in South Jersey.
Okay.
A little town called Deptford, probably about 15, 20 miles south of here.
Okay. And we're in Mount Holly now. So
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I was born. That's where I was raised. Went to high school there, the whole bit. Really, what kind of?
Now, did you play sports, or were you?
Absolutely, yeah. I was a football player in high school. We were actually state champions.
Right, state really?
Yeah.
What position?
I was a running back.
Were you really?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was a running back. I was a good enough high school football player to get a full scholarship.
Okay.
I played football in college. I started off at Villanova and finished up at East Carolina Universities.
Nice. Okay.
So
as a running back.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I was a running back at both places.
Okay.
I was running back at both places. Villanova had the good fortune of actually playing with Howie Long.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was I think he was a junior. I can't remember if he was junior or senior when I got there. And then Villanova dropped the program. I ended up transferring to East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina.
They dropped the football program?
Villanova actually dropped the football program.
Really?
Yeah.
I've not heard of that before.
Yeah. Like in 1981, like my freshman year, they dropped the program.
Wow.
They just dropped it. Said we're out of the Division I football game. So all of us ended up transferring.
So now, would they have continued your scholarship if?
Yes,
they would.
They would absolutely.
Do that.
Yep. That was an option
for
all of us. But you're 18-year-old kid.
You want to play football.
Exactly. You have these illusions of grandeur. You think you're going to play in the NFL.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So we all transferred. But yeah, to Villanova's credit, they said if you wanted to stay here, they would honor all 4 years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right. And so after graduating, now, how was the team when you switched to the team?
The team was really quite good. My senior year, we ended up number 18 in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. We had, I think, on that team, 11 of the 22 starters actually played in the NFL.
Really?
So it was a really good team.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Wow. It was a great experience.
Interesting.
So,
All right. So I'm a big believer that if you play high-level sports, it really impacts your business career, how you think, and so on. So where'd you go from there after that? What did you
Absolutely. Do? I think well, first let me comment on that, right? You're absolutely right, because it is the same kind of focus, discipline, and tenacity that's required to be success as an athlete that really makes you successful in business.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. Very simple.
So after undergrad, I actually started my career at Rowan University, where I was an administrator. I was a purchasing. I started my career in purchasing.
Okay.
Went back to graduate school.
Okay. MBA? Or?
Got my MBA.
From where?
St. Joseph University.
Oh, St. Joseph. Okay, yeah.
And
now they have an entrepreneurial program, right?
They do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Very, very good entrepreneurial program there. Yeah. So I went back there, got my MBA, and it really, let me share with you the focus why I did that. And kind of what my interest in business was from the very beginning.
Because we have a lot of young people watching this show, and I think it's important. That's why I like the origin stories. Yeah. So they can say, hey, wow, I can do what he did, and so on.
Absolutely. One of the things and we'll get back to the story, but one of the things I want to share with people is the folks who you look up to or you admire, who you see in positions of power, they're human beings.
They're human beings.
That's
they're average human beings.
They're just people who are willing to take a risk, who are willing to put in the work. Oftentimes, I've found that they're not any brighter than you.
Right.
But they have a vision. Right. They have a passion, and they're willing to take the chance to go out and chase it.
Yes.
That's really so. I want to share with people that message. Right. Don't think you can't.
Right.
That person sitting in that seat is no different than you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
that's a great point.
But to go back to my origins, my father was a physician. He was a surgeon.
Okay.
One of the first African American surgeons.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was a DO.
Okay.
And typically they become like family practice.
Right.
So he was one of the first DOs who became a surgeon.
Wow.
And he built a nice practice. We had a very comfortable life.
Wow. Now, what kind of surgery? What did he focus?
General surgery. General surgery.
Okay.
But I remember watching his frustration of not being able to build a not be able to build his practice larger than it was. And one of the things I learned from watching him, and one of the things I think is important for people who have an entrepreneurial dream to really understand, so there's a huge difference from being good at a thing,
yes,
and then being good at the business of a thing.
right, exactly,
Right?
totally different.
Exactly.
expertise.
They're different skill sets.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I was really interested in studying business was because that's important to me, like to understand what are the fundamental building blocks
Right.
to build a successful career, team, or organization.
Right.
And so that was kind of the genesis for me.
Well, and that's great for our entrepreneur state of mind audience. It's important to understand. You can have a great idea and so on, but you got to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Absolutely.
And even in sports, that's what you've got to know your strengths and your weaknesses to get to the next level. And don't try to sugarcoat it. And so, did you ever think about taking that business back to your dad's practice and really helping him develop the practice, or?
That was the game plan.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That was the game plan. But unfortunately, my father got sick and passed away relatively young, so I never got that opportunity. To do that with him. But that is something that through my consulting practices, and I've been doing this now for over a dozen years. That I always try to give back, and I remember that story as a child. And it's important to me to help folks. And part of the reason that when I got introduced to the company I work with now, Achieve Next, one of the things that really kind of connected for me is who they target. We don't work with the Fortune 500, or the Fortune 1000. We work with the middle market, And this, and two things. These are the people who really need the help the most, because they typically don't have people like yourself, people like myself, with our background and experience in their operationally running the business on a regular basis. And also, that's where the action is. If we look at the overall economic picture, like everybody knows about Amazon. Everybody knows about Xerox or Xerox. I'm dating myself. But everybody knows about those companies, right? But if we look at where the real growth is in our GDP, in employment, it's not there. It's at that next level down. That's where the action is. So that's what I'm really passionate about and excited about working.
Well, and again, Achieve Next, I love that. So I spent 11 years at Deloitte Consulting, and so Deloitte Consulting would go to the big companies, and they don't pay attention to the middle market.
Exactly.
You can't charge, $500 an hour the middle market. And so it's wide open, and there's a real opportunity to do that. And so. Now, what did you do before Achieve Next? What did you do after? So you're Rowan, and then after that, what did you do?
I was at Rowan, like I said, started in administration, and then I taught in the business school for a number of years.
Oh, you taught? Okay, what course?
I taught economics,
okay,
and a little bit of math.
Nice. Oh, wow, wonderful. Wow.
So those are my areas. After that, I left that probably about 10 years ago. Okay. And I started a consulting practice.
Your own.
Yeah, started my own. Yep, put my shingle out.
Okay.
Got a partner, and we started a business, and we were pretty successful.
Now, what was the focus of the consulting?
We were again, same thing, human capital.
Right.
We really did human capital, and the idea here is we wanted to be able to tie your human capital strategies and development to your business strategy. Oftentimes, if you've ever done strategic planning, especially in smaller middle market companies, they come up and they build out these strategic plans. They have a great idea. Then it ends up sitting on the shelf. And it doesn't get implemented. And one of the things that I saw over the years, and this really goes back to my years as a professor, one of the things that I saw is that it didn't get implemented because they didn't have the ability to implement it. Like, they didn't have people with the skills, competencies to make that happen. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create, and the name of that firm was Straxo, Strategy and Execution.
Nice, I like that.
So that's the idea. So, okay, how can we help now build up your human capital strategy so that this becomes implementable? So that you know how, so that you have the people, you have the processes, and you have the capacity to implement what it is that you're dreaming about implementing. Because oftentimes I found that was the gap.
And so let me ask you, so there are a lot of entrepreneurs watching this show, and they say, okay, that is a brilliant strategy. But so many people didn't realize that they needed it, right? So how did you sell that to companies? How did you get contracts?
That challenging. You're absolutely right. That's challenging, because people don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know. They think they're fine, and everything's copacetic, and why do we need you?
Absolutely. So, that was a challenge. It took time. It took us a few years to kind of build the practice up. But that was, you're right. So we would, we would spend time, we would talk to people. It's It's like anything, right? You got to do the groundwork, man.
You got to do the work.
You just go get out there and you talk to people,
Yeah.
and you get on shows like this, and you have conversations, and you say, do you understand like what separates success from failure?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
It's funny. Right before this show started, I was talking to somebody in the lobby, and we were talking about college football because of the background, right? And we said, you look at a program like Alabama,
Right.
I was just joking. I said, listen, next year, I don't know who's going to be in the BCS playoffs, but I can almost guarantee you one of those teams is going to be Alabama.
Exactly.
And why is that? Does Alabama get great talent? They absolutely do.
Right.
But so does Ohio State.
Right.
So does Michigan.
And
so does Clemson. So does LSU. They all get it, right? What makes them so consistently great?
Right.
Well, it's their processes, right? Nick Saban has built out a framework and a process by which to develop these young men to make them the best football players they can be. So in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they're going to be successul.
Right.
And it's the same thing in business, right? And what I would typically ask an entrepreneur, and they'll talk about their plans, all that, say, what are you doing to build your people to make that happen? Because at the end of the day, that's who's going to make it happen.
Exactly.
Okay, you can have the greatest idea in the world.
Right.
Okay, but unless you have people who can implement that, it's not going to happen.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And I often say that because of technology, people are more important than ever before because technology is taking care of things. And often if you talk to entrepreneurs, you say, if I give you a choice of, of money and bad people or good people and no money, they'll take the good people because the good people help you make money. Absolutely. If you have money and bad people, you're going to lose that money. And so it's human capital, but folks don't either recognize that or they don't know how to develop the people or find the people that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's a combination, right? I think that you're right. Sometimes they don't realize it because the technology is the bright, shiny thing in the room.
Right,
and we love to chase bright, shiny things.
Right.
And I also think that somehow that they think that they can, some of them think that they can buy knowledge, or they can buy skill, versus developing it. One of the things, and I'm sure you're an academic, so I'm sure you're familiar with this concept, right? Is the idea that information has a half-life.
Right.
It's, what I learned as an undergraduate, 30 years ago is, right?
Yeah.
So, but the idea is how do you create a continuous learning environment where people continue to grow?
Right.
Because if I'm going to get bigger, if we're going to be able to accomplish more, it's never about what I know today.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about what am I going to learn tomorrow, and what are the frame. And so for you, how do you build the infrastructure in your organization so that you become a continuous learning environment, directed, not just randomly, but directed in a way that's going to get you to where it is that you want to get to. So that's one of the things that we always try to consistently. That's part of what Achieve Next is about, right? When we say it's about, how do we help individuals, teams, and enterprises achieve the next level of success?
Right.
It's about growing people.
Yes, absolutely.
So and that's part of that discussion. That's part of what we always talk to our clients about.
Excellent. Well, that's a perfect time to break. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we're going to come back and want to talk about Achieve Next and really some of the things that Achieve Next is doing and its founding. So we'll see you in a little bit.
Looking forward to it.
We're Dr. Mark and Liz from Marriage Matters, a show that inspires, instills hope, and empowers couples to weather the stresses of married life.
Join us each week to hear how couples, real couples like you, have overcome challenges that were hurting their marriages, as well as getting expert advice on ways to nurture a happy and healthy relationship.
Tune in Fridays at 4:30 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 a.m. on RVN TV.
The new Kentucky Fried Chicken Sandwich with brioche buns, mayo, pickles, and a quarter-pound filet as far as the eye can see. Get comfy, it's gonna be a while. This thing's huge. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken Sandwich for just $3.99. It's finger-licking good.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, with Milton Corsey from Achieve Next, and we were just talking about Achieve Next, and some of the wonderful things. And I'm happy to be part of the part of the team. So when was Achieve Next founded, and tell me a little bit about its history and kind of your role there.
Sure. Achieve Next was founded 5 years ago.
Okay.
By the three principals at the time, Nick Aracco, Todd White, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Oh my goodness, he's going to be upset with me. And with Greg Wood. Those are the three gentlemen who kind of founded the company.
Okay.
And they really founded around these networks.
Right.
Okay. Basically, what they were doing is they believed in in self-help.
Right.
So they created these CFO and CHRO networks where you would get human resource officers and finance officers from these middle market companies, and we'd create meeting place for them to coalesce and share best practices and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So that was the genesis of it.
Right.
And then from that, you got insight. What are their fears? What are their concerns? What do they see happening in the next year? What's the help that they are going to need, and all those kind of things.
Right.
So from that, those three guys put their heads together and said, you know what? There's an opportunity here for us to build out some solutions that can help them.
Right.
So from that, Achieve Next was born, and all of their human capital solutions sets came up. And as you know, as now one of our consultants, there are a variety of different areas that we help people with. Executive coaching, right? For senior executives in those middle market companies who are looking to grow. We have a really thriving DEI practice, We have a leadership development practice, which is kind of what I brought in when I came in last year.
Okay.
Yeah. We also have sales and sales leadership and relational capital building, like all of those things.
Okay.
And so what we do every year is we go out and we poll these companies, and there's literally thousands of companies, like over 10,000 companies are part of our network.
Wow.
And we go out every year and we talk to them.
Right.
And we gain insight and say, look, what are your thoughts? What are your concerns? And then we begin to now use that as a basis to help us craft solutions.
Right.
So that we can then help these folks achieve their next level of success. And that's really what the name came from, right?
Yeah.
Achieve Next. Individuals, teams, enterprises achieve their next level of success. And that's really what the whole enterprise is about.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And so, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing out there that, as you go through? So what are some of the, because, a lot of people, maybe middle market leaders that are watching and saying, what challenges have you dealt with? And hey, wait, I have that challenge too. So.
Right. One of the biggest challenges right now, and it's no surprise, is talent acquisition.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Getting and keeping good people.
Yeah.
That's a huge challenge for organizations right now, because it's really a seller's market, right? So it's what can we do, or what can you do as an enterprise to make yourself attractive?
Right.
To make yourself a place that people want to work. So, and there's a crap ton of comp studies going on right now to make sure that we're compensating people properly and all that kind of good stuff.
Right.
And listen, good on you. We can help with those things as well.
Right.
But what we know, and I'm sure you've heard the old axiom before, is that people don't quit jobs, they quit people.
Right. They quit people, they quit their boss.
Exactly. We quit our bosses.
Yeah.
So now, what can we do? How can we help you as a boss to become aware of that reality, to see yourself the way that your employees see you, to kind of help you smooth out some of those rough edges that you may or may not have. And then how do you create an environment where people want to come, where they have the opportunity to grow and thrive?
Right.
And one of the things that we found, is especially with Gen X and millennials, is that they're coming to you as an employer and asking you the old sales question, what's in it for me?
The whiff, right?
Yep, what's in it for me?
Right.
So the idea is, how are we going to grow? How are we going to get better? And so I think if you have a really sound talent development strategy, here's how we're going to help Dale become a better version of Dale.
Right.
Now, hopefully Dale will stay here with us and grow. But if you don't, you get to take those skills with you. Right.
Exactly.
But we benefit from them while you're here.
Right.
So it's how do you build out that talent strategy that's going to be attractive to people. So that's, if right now, outside of some things that are some macro issues, when we look at, depending on the nature of the business, there are some real issues in the supply chain. There's some real issues, those will ameliorate themselves over time. But the biggest one is talent right now. Without question.
Well, and as I said, people have become more important, and that's one of the reasons that I've talked about this coach leadership that I'm developing with John Griffith and Scott Livengood. And the idea is, and we'll talk a little bit about DEI, is that there's all this DEI training, and so say you have the diverse workforce. How do you manage it? And you have to really become a coach leader. You've got to manage everybody in a way that's meaningful to them, right? And you can't manage, broadly the same to everybody anymore. You really got to customize it. And so talk about the DEI practice that you're doing work in.
Yeah, like I said, DEI has been a hot topic over the last few years. I think,
really has.
But one of the things that we're doing now is kind of melding DEI into some of our leadership and team building programs, because it's more than simply. I've always had issue with the idea of DEI being this thing,
this whole separate,
the separate thing, right? Because one of the things, that I stands for inclusion, and there's even sometimes now using the acronym B, belonging,
right?
How
belonging.
do you create that?
Right,
and that's about relationships, right?
It really
that's
is.
about how we create that environment where not only do you hire Dale, you hire Milton, but that it becomes our place. That we feel that we belong here. Like one of the things I share with you at the beginning is, I spent a couple of years at Villanova University, fantastic university, great place, was treated well there, but I never felt like it was my place.
Right. That belonging,
Yeah, that belonging wasn't there. Now, but I don't think, that they were aware.
Right.
I don't think,
it wasn't intentional.
No, absolutely
it wasn't
not.
intentional, right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But the idea is, how do we now, as business leaders, move with intention to create environments where that are inclusive, where people and the thing that I always share with them is, if we look at the data, right? This isn't because you should be a nice person. Dale's going to be a great guy, or Milton's going to be a great guy. If we look at performance metrics, and we'll look at, and this was a McKinsey study in 2016, and we look at the curve on diverse leadership teams and overall operational performance of organizations, there is a direct correlation, between inclusion and diversity and performance.
And return on investment, right?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, because I'm a business guy. I get it. I'm in this thing to make money. Right. So what I'm suggesting to you is that this is an avenue, this is a tool that you have in your toolkit that will help you make more money. So it's in your interest.
And people are starting to believe that, because again, as you said, the seller's market, they're starting to realize how important people are. And so, there are more and more. I know I've had more opportunities to do that kind of consulting than ever before in my life. And so what do you see the future? The future is, I know you talked a little about leadership and that. Where do you think we're going? I mean, again, we get through this pandemic and now there's a war. It's a challenging time.
It is a very challenging time, and I see a lot of interesting changes coming on the horizon. Some of those changes are going to be structural because the pandemic has created a virtual world, in a lot of ways. What we've learned over the course of these 2 years, where we spent a lot of time in a virtual existence, is that we can be as productive, if not more so, that way. Now, does that create a different strains for leaders? Does it say we have to update how we interact and lead people? Absolutely, because there are certain challenges when we're virtual, So I see some real opportunity there, How do we create leaders who are attuned and adept at dealing with people in a virtual world? Communication is very different that way. I'm sure you know.
Absolutely.
A huge part of communication is body language. Well, that doesn't necessarily come across on a Zoom call.
Exactly.
So how do we address that? So there's opportunity there. There's also opportunity. There's also this reality of how do we now address creating organizational culture? When we have this dispersed environment as well, Because oftentimes culture is driven by interaction, right? And if in fact Dale is in Secaucus and Milton is in Dover, and we don't really get to spend time together, how do we create those connections that really count? How do we create an organization where we all feel part of it?
And those water cooler conversations we used to have are very important, but we're not having them anymore.
Exactly. So how do you create a culture? So those are some of the things I see as challenges that leaders are going to have on the horizon that they're going to have to deal with, right? How do you lead virtual teams? How do you create a culture that's sticky when you have this dispersed workforce? So there's it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and one of the terms that I've really that resonates, and I've talked to a lot of my clients, is this idea of reboarding. We know what onboarding is. You get somebody in, but now people have been with the company for a while, but they're working from home. They're coming back into the office. They're reboarding, and I think that will go on for a long time because it's going to be a hybrid world. We're never going to be 100% always in person again.
I couldn't agree more. I never heard that term reboarding, but thank you so much. I'm going to steal that. Just so you know.
No, please use it. I actually came up with it, but then I realized other people were using it. But
just
that's important.
You're absolutely right, because that new normal, like, we're never going to go back
to
everybody 9 to 5.
Right.
I'm in the office.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
So how do we now deal with that reality?
Exactly.
And that reboarding process is a great way to phrase it, right? Frame it. It's like, how are we what's that new normal look like?
Right.
And how do we now lead and manage and create productive organizations and teams around that?
Perfect, and that's unfortunately we're at time. These things always go so quickly. I could talk for another half hour to you.
For sure.
But Milton, I want to thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure.
As always, and thank you for watching Entrepreneur State of Mind. I know you've learned some things today, and so we will see you next week. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and have a great day.